Hi, just me checking in again. It's been a little while since I did a video update. Um, I'm just feeling a little down because it's approaching my birthday, and I was looking over here at this pot that Craig and I had stuff in before. Frequently, we would buy specialty peppers or herbs like purple basil for one. I like that. We bought some red beauty peppers, some pink brandywine, tomatoes, some black cherry and Rutgers, Cherokee purple. The thing that really got me though was I found this, and of course you can't really tell what it is just looking at it. This used to be a rose. He bought me 2 roses for my birthday a few years ago, and I really didn't have anywhere to put them. I really was unappreciative because, I was like, well, why don't you, why didn't you ask me what I wanted? Why didn't you buy me some, this kind of tree or that kind of tree that I've been wanting? And we always argued kind of about the yard and different things, but I ended up, planting those roses over there where that big pot is now, and it's where I had actually had an apple tree that lived for a few years, and then it got some kind of disease and died. Well, the apples ended up getting some kind of disease and dying too. And just finding that broken piece of the bottom of one today with the little strip still on it, so I know that's exactly what it was. I just got done recording a song, Barbra Streisand's The Way We Were, and that was really hard anyway. Singing is therapeutic because it helps me express myself, but at the same time you have to be able to maintain some emotional control. You have to be able to hold your voice steady on the notes while you're singing. And when you're singing something that, it's familiar, The Way We Were, memories like light the corners of my mind, everybody knows the tune, but when you're singing about somebody who you know, and you're singing about the smiles that you gave to one another, and then you realize that all you have left are the pictures, and of course the memories. That's a lot. It's a lot, But then you have all the things involved with missing the person, and it's not some of the stuff that you'd necessarily expect. It's things like looking back at your birthdays over the years and seeing the different things that happened, and sometimes birthdays were shitty and sometimes they were great. And there was one birthday that I had, my 35th birthday. I didn't get, hey, how are you, or anything. And that night, he ended up going out with some of his friends and came back messed up, bloody all, he'd fallen. He ended up with like a big mark on the top of his head that, he ended up having a big scar about thumb-sized on the top of his head, until the day he died. That was my 35th birthday present, was nothing, and him coming back messed up like that. That was 14 years ago. So, that was probably the worst one, but, there's been better ones. And the one just a few years ago when he gave me those roses. Oh, I'm trying to remember what birthday it was. It was probably my 45th birthday, so it would be about 4 years ago. And now I just wish that I had appreciated it more. I wish that I had just said, thank you, baby, you know? Because his love language of... he felt loved and appreciated if he could buy something that someone would like. And he might even forget the next week that he had even bought something, but that was just the way it was. And I have had a tendency to, when it's people who know me who are giving me gifts, sometimes I'm that person. I'll look at it and go, thanks, you got me this. Okay, but why? And I should just appreciate it. So, I guess that's the message of this catching up today. Yeah, I'm sad. Here it is. Let's see, it's the 17th, so it's, 45 days since he died, or so. A month and a half. But I'm trying to be appreciative. I'm trying to be appreciative of everything that I have here now. I don't have to go out and buy another big pot or potting soil because I've got it. He used to buy, the good potting soil that had the moisture stuff in it, and it was all, to me, I thought, oh well, that's silly. I've got dirt, I've got compost. I don't need that stuff. Well, different people have different ways of doing things, and he always wanted me to use more fertilizer, and I tended to not use hardly any at all because I wanted to do the totally organic everything and, use my compost and, I use newspapers to cover the ground so that I don't end up having weeds, and, a lot of that works, but I needed probably more fertilizer for my tomatoes and peppers and whatever. And that's the stuff that we would normally put in the garden. Before he died April 2nd. In March, we had been talking about, because we'd been trying to till up the garden. Here's the garden, if you can see it. It's tilled up some. Might be able to see tomato, But there's also, as you can see, there's a few trees scattered over in it. Some of them are peach trees where I had intended to plant them and then pull them out and plant them somewhere else, and now I just need to cut them out. Because obviously I don't want a tree right in the middle of my garden. Couple other of them were sumac trees. I have shining sumac and winged sumac that I healed into the garden at one point, and they've now spread, and every year I dig up some and try to take them back and plant them in my nature preserve area, my arbor. And every year something happens and they seem to live for a while and then they die. So hopefully this year that won't happen. Every year I take a little bit more care with them when I do go back there and plant them. I have roses and various other things. And then back beyond, up in through here, is the arbor. He always said that I'd made the yard look like a jungle, but I mean, there's trails. There's a higher canopy of some of the older trees that have been here since before we got here, and then there's a lower canopy of mainly bush honeysuckle that came up that I made paths within, and you know, as long as I keep it trimmed, it's nice. You know, I've got a natural area. It's like my own little park that I can come into and I can enjoy. You know, I can come back here and, you know, I've got feeders set up if I want to feed things. I've got my little pet cemetery. Over that way I have my worship circle. Over this way I've got a little pond that I dug and then cemented in, and you can't really see, but here, this is actually a lot of Lake Michigan sand that I brought in and put down there so that I could, you know, put my toes in like it was Lake Michigan at the beach, and, you know, with this pond that clearly needs to be mucked out now because of the extensive amount of leaves overhead. I end up getting lots and lots of leafy detritus in it. I used to have aquatic plants in it, but yeah, they didn't do too badly, but some of it's just the fact that the pond is so small. Once too much crap got in it, it was kind of hard to... You can't exactly take out the aquatic plants to clean the pond, and yet that's really what it needed. Pond. It's, you know, it's the size of a bathtub, so kind of a small bathtub. So I just muck it out, and I have mosquito baits that I put in it that actually have a bacteria in them that infects the larvae. And it doesn't actually, the weird thing is, it doesn't actually kill them, it just stops them from maturing, so they stay larvae. They can never come out as adult mosquitoes, and then, you know, they live their short little lifespan there in the water, however larvae do, and then they die. So, anyway, so that's me getting carried away with my natural area back here. You know, Craig always said that he loved being out in the country. You know, he would say, you know, I wish we had a place out in the country. I wish we, you know, lived. And the thing is, we had one briefly. The land ended up being sold out from under us because the lady who owned it, we were buying our trailer from her son and his husband, and it was half paid for on lease purchase. But we had no agreement with her on the land. She had mortgaged the land a couple times over and lost the land right out from under us. So we had a place out in the country off Straw Plains Pike. It had a huge yard, and I had only begun, because we were there like 2 years, I'd only begun landscaping it by the time we ended up losing it and had to move. So I dug up some of the things that I'd planted. I hadn't really planted a whole heck of a lot, and most of those things didn't make it, but, you know, because we then stayed a year on Calusi Drive, and then we moved here, January of '02. And basically, as soon as my hip replacements were done, I'm trying to remember if I tried to plant things even before they were done. I think I did. I didn't have a lot of success before my hip replacements because it was excruciatingly painful, and I don't use that hyperbolically. If you ever have some bone degrade in your body while you're using it, trying to put I couldn't even sleep, you know, except for on my back. I couldn't let my feet splay out, you know, I had to keep my legs straight. It was horrible, and I was on all kinds of pain meds that messed with my mind, so... but anyway, this Sunheim Arbor Frith-yard is meant to be enjoyed. It's meant for people to come walk here meditatively, and they can sit down in my chair next to this pond. They can lean up against a tree or sit on the ground, and there's a few places where there's still a little bit of grass. The whole place used to be basically a big lawn, and I allowed things to grow, and I planted some other things here and there. So I probably got about 6 or 8 trees that I specifically planted myself, and that includes the 3 sumacs that I just planted this year. I keep trying to plant, there's actually an Asian type of holly, and it survived being here in a pot for over a year, and then this spring, I thought, oh, okay, well, I'll just take that and pop that in the ground, and it should be fine. And it's not. And other things are, surprisingly doing fairly well. I planted this holly from seed. I picked a berry. It was by a Kmart that we used to go to that's closed now. I think all the ones in Knoxville might be closed. But this was the one that we used to mainly go to. It was one where he had actually got his first bowling ball when we were doing the bowling league-wise with the Appalachian Bear Club. Oh man, we had great fun with that. But anyway, I planted that, and you might be able to see that it was only like maybe 2 feet tall. It's probably 7 or 8 years old already. So, people sometimes will ask me, well, what are you going to do now? Are you going to move? Well, with escrow, which also includes hazard insurance, I need to get regular house insurance. Long story on that as far as why we don't have regular house insurance. But we have the hazard insurance, which is more expensive. And yet, with that, and then, of course, the property tax and whatnot, rolled into the escrow, my payments, and actually with a secondary insurance that covers all the appliances, it covers plumbing, it covers electrical inside the house, $425 a month. $425 a month for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath Victorian that needs a little bit of work. But, it's within half a block of being on, for buses if people wanted to use public transit. The only bad thing is it's not great for biking because I live on East Oak Hill, and it's not called hill for nothing. It's the top of a ridge that St. Mary's Hospital, which is now Tenova, is on. And if you follow that ridge, it's really kind of cool. If you look at Knoxville just topographically and look at the various ridges, you can see why the roads are the way they are. When you get over to Westtown Mall, which was the first place that I had a job when I first moved down here in late '93, Westtown Mall is on the same ridge that I live on. So that was just kind of a fascinating little aside. Beyond me, back that way to the northwestish, is Sharps Ridge, which is actually named for one of the families that I'm descended from. And then there's this ridge, and then there's probably another couple as you head toward downtown Knoxville. But the closer you get to the river, there's been, enough erosion so that the city center was actually, placed more on a lower spot, a lower, flatter place. So, anyway, well, now you've gotten a little tiny tour of my yard, of my plantings, and, maybe a little more of getting to know me, if you wanted to get to know me. I just love looking at the various birds that we have, because of all this. There's a subspecies of cardinal called the Kentucky cardinal. I don't know if you can see it right there, but that's a male. And they're red like regular cardinals, only the wings are a little brown comparatively. The females are drab, kind of a like brown with like a hint of rust to it, just like female regular cardinals. But this particular subspecies, the Kentucky cardinal, is actually the only one that I've seen here in our yard. So we've got them, we've got blue jays, we've got robins. The only foreign invasive bird species we have is the English starling. And unfortunately, they like to make holes in the side of the house. The siding that we have is it's a particle board type siding that they don't make anymore because it falls apart. It disintegrates in time, and ours is. So, the next project after the roof will be getting the house re-sided. Once the roof and the siding are done and the hole that's in the ceiling inside in the dining room, once those things are fixed, I think the next project would be to remove all the press and place tiles. This place actually had been turned into 2 apartments during the World's Fair in 1982, and it had hardwood floors. They covered all the hardwood floors with press board, and then they covered all that with press and place tiles, and not pretty ones. They're like brown with some kind of black patterning thing going on, and it's just they're nasty, they're hideous, they're old, they're cracking, they're coming up. You know, they're awful. So, in terms of things to do around here, I have my work cut out for me. I have yard work. I need to trim on things. I've been trimming on things. I went down street level, yesterday I think it was, and used hedge trimmers and trimmed everything that was down there. And took my little hand snips and snipped on some branches that were hanging a little low, you know, in terms of this oak tree here and the oak tree next to it. There were branches that were hanging down in the street, so I trimmed them up some, and I've got a cedar that I keep trimmed up. That's actually, this cedar has grown since we first moved here. Along through here, in the front of my house, originally, through here, there was nothing. Nothing. There's a bank, there's a wall. Well, part of the wall is missing right here, because it had fallen before we got here. But there's a wall, and there had been Japanese honeysuckle growing all over it, and that's basically all you could see. But every single bush that you see, every tree, was either planted by me or I allowed it to grow. So I now have a couple of mulberry trees that give me really good mulberries. It's actually time to be taking them in now or soon. They haven't really started dropping and making a mess yet, but eventually they will. But they make really good jam, and they're good to add to other things because they have a very mild flavor. They're sweet, sort of texture-wise they would remind you a little bit of a raspberry, only they don't have the hard seeds in them, and they are generally not as tart as any kind of a raspberry or blackberry. They're not related to raspberries or blackberries, they just happen to have fruit that looks exactly like a blackberry. Oh, except for the white ones, I do have one white mulberry. Well, it's pure enough white, which is from Asia, to where it actually has white berries on it. There have been some people who would argue that you should still call some mulberries white even when they have purple berries. And I'm like, no. The pure ones from Asia don't get purple berries. Their berries stay white. They don't turn. So if they turn, if they're here, then it may be a hybrid of the white mulberry and something else. You know, either the red mulberry or, if you were over in Texas, the black mulberry. But yeah, we have hybrids of the red and white here. The red mulberry being the native to the American South and the Midwest, kind of up to, I guess, somewhere in southern Michigan, roughly. I took one specimen up there and planted it at my mom's. I'm pretty sure well, I can't be sure that it's pure red, but it's pretty close. It's very slow growing, which is one of the characteristics of the red mulberries. So we'll have to see. These ones here in front of my house are no more than 15 years old, and they are about 25, 30 feet tall. And they're kind of spindly, and they have lots of branching going on. All of that bespeaks a lot of white mulberry ancestry. And their leaves show it too. So, but I did have, before it was cut down in '09, there was a true, pure, full, old red mulberry at the corner of my yard when we first moved here. So, some of the mulberries that are around here are definitely at least half of that. So, that's a good thing. Alright, I guess that's about it now. I've been on here for nearly half an hour. If anybody wants to make any comments or anything, I didn't do this like a regular video on Facebook because I wasn't sure what I would think or feel, you know, how it would end up coming out, and you know, I guess it's alright. So I'm going to get off here and then share it, and feel free to you know, get back with me with any questions or comments or thoughts or well wishes or you know, whatever. So I appreciate all good people in my life. Thanks. Bye.